Hey everybody, it's Uncle Grumpy. Welcome to Grumpy Tonight, or tonight we'll call it Grumpy's Corner. As you see, we've got our Grumpy's Corner sign back here. Tonight, Lawrence Pasternak is going to come on and talk to us a little bit. Let me get it organized here, and we'll get Lawrence on right away. Okay, let's see. We will reach out to Lawrence right away, folks. Just hang on a second. All right, Lawrence, if you're out there. Let's see. How do I search for somebody on here? Wrong button. All right, folks, I'm trying to figure it out. Give me just a second here. Trying to find Lawrence. That's not what I'm wanting. What's this one? There he is. Okay, we just invited him. We need him to show up now. Lawrence has always got lots of useful information. I'm sure tonight will be no different. All right. Okay, we just need Lawrence to come on here. All right, let me see if I can message him. Maybe he's not getting this yet. All right, Lawrence, where are you, buddy? Hello, Mike. Hello, Patricia. Hello, Shayna. We'll get Lawrence on here and we'll get right to it. Hello, Renee. Happy New Year to you, too. Where are you at, Lawrence? There we go. Let's see if this works. All right, I think it's working now. We should have Lawrence with us here in just a minute. There he is. Hi, Lawrence. Can you hear me? Well, let me unplug that. Can you?
The angle of my camera. 1 second.
Okay.
It's a little low.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. How's that?
We have a good signal. Isn't this nice? I don't have technical problems when I'm here in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, let me see if I can get a little more light going.
That's okay. You're pretty enough for radio. So how are you doing? How is your new year going?
So far, I don't have a particularly good sampling of the way 2019 will turn out.
Uh-oh.
So far, it seems very similar to 2018. I'm waiting to find where the difference is going to begin.
Okay. Is that what you look for, a difference? Wouldn't that be the difference would be the New Year's resolutions everybody makes. Wouldn't that be the difference?
If people observe the New Year's resolutions, then maybe there would be a difference. But the resolutions themselves, well, I don't know if that'll be a difference. That'll cause a difference.
They do observe them for, I think, an average of 3 weeks is about how long the average American sticks to a resolution. Or so, perhaps it's different for a little while. I don't know.
Perhaps. Have you seen a study of this, of actually how long people do spend?
Yes, I actually heard a study about this just about 3 or 4 days ago. I sure did. And that was it. It was about 3 weeks for the average American was how long they stuck to a resolution.
Well, that surprises me. I wouldn't even have thought it that long.
Not a great number, though, is it? It's not a very big number. Not even a month.
No. Am I in the shadows? Am I like really dark, like I'm an evil villain right now?
No, we already know you're an evil villain. The lighting isn't going to change that. I don't know what you're looking for here, buddy. No, the lighting is fine.
The image of myself makes me look like almost all like it's in black, and I just see like part of my face.
Yeah, well, we all know you're an evil villain. We all know you're actually the one behind the curtain, right? This is the puppet show. Aren't you the puppet master?
No longer am I the one behind the curtain.
Maybe.
I think you've just revealed that.
Maybe. So, Lawrence, look, tonight you came on so we could have a serious discussion about edibles in Oklahoma, the ones we're making here in Oklahoma, and how those are coming out, because you've got some reviews on those and you want to discuss the edible issue. So once you get started.
Yeah, I have a number of general comments to make about edibles. And a lot of it does have to do with their medical issues related to it, both pro and con, and what options people, I think, have, the difficulties right now in the market, and so on. So, so to begin, I'm sure a lot of people are aware that edibles are very precarious, that a lot of people just find them to be inconsistent, that if they were to eat one edible, then another one from the same package, the effect could vary greatly. If somebody were to cut up an edible and eat one half of it one day and the other half of it another day, the effects could vary greatly. So, there's really a serious problems with regards to consistency across edibles. And let me point out that I think one of the reasons why is that the medium in which edibles normally are, that is, gummies, for instance, or brownies, or Rice Krispie squares, and so on. In many cases, the gummies being, I think, perhaps the most common, in many cases, you're just not going to get consistency because of how they're manufactured and because of the medium itself. Gelatin, right? The gummy, as is a gelatin, and gelatin is a protein, and cannabis doesn't dissolve. Cannabinoids don't dissolve in proteins, so you can't really create a solution of cannabinoids in gelatin. And I don't understand how it came to be, how it became a popular thing in medical states and recreational states, how it became a popular thing to have these gummies, because it really isn't a good medium for cannabinoids. So think about it this way: if somebody wanted to produce a batch of cannabis gummies, they're going to get a gelatin mix, they're going to put some cannabis oil in, they're going to stir it up, and then they're either going to, from that stirred mixture, they're going to put it into molds, or they might spread it out into a tray and cut it, and so on. The problem is that mixture basically will result in hot spots and cold spots, so to speak. So imagine, you're mixing it like this, clockwise, let's say. And so as you're mixing it, you're spiraling through the mixture, the cannabis oil. So you're going to basically get hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold across the radius of the surface as you mix it. Now, of course, if you mix it with a more complicated process, you might get more evenness, but still the periphery of the area, certain regions within it, you're just going to get a significant variation. And the reason why, again, is because the cannabinoids don't dissolve in gelatin.
Okay. So
you're going to basically not have a solution.
All right. So I have to ask, how are they, I've looked into it. How are they doing it in other states? Have you looked into that? Because
I've not looked into it. Certainly, I'm sure in some cases it's done that way. I know that in a number of other cases, what they do is they add emulsifiers and surfactants and other sorts of additional chemicals in order to allow the cannabinoids to dissolve. So, with additional molecules, you could create a solution. But just putting cannabis oil in, it won't be a solution.
Now, I understand in some cases what they're actually using is it's almost like a sugar. It's a dried, I forget what they call it, that they're rolling it in. So it's that sugar coating on the outside of the gummy. In some of the states, I had some in the past from California, or no, from Nevada, that had like a sugar coating, like an orange slice. And those are the ones I linked, and I couldn't figure out why is it we can't get those here in Oklahoma? Why can't they make those like that here in Oklahoma? And I found out that that's actually that crystal on the outside, that's where the THC is, that it's not actually in the gummy.
Yeah, I've seen that process as well. And frankly, I think that there are a number of real solutions that without any really kind of advanced chemistry, without, basically getting this proprietary information that's been developed in other states, there are some really good concrete solutions available. Solutions, no pun intended,
So
right?
what?
There are some really good options out there.
Okay, so since we're talking about edibles, let's start with why does it matter what the dosage is? I mean, what have you looked into what the average dose is of, say, a child or something like that? What the recommended dose is versus what we're making? Say they were consistent, would we be making the right strength also?
In my opinion, no. That, for people that are very THC tolerant, for people who have been using it for years, sure, these people could handle the 50 milligram, 100 milligram edibles that are common in the market, right? That when you go to a lot of dispensaries, what you see are edibles that are 50 to 100 milligrams. And, for somebody who's been using it for years, sure, maybe that's fine for them. But for almost everybody else, that's extraordinarily high dosages.
So
And
we did.
it doesn't have to be this way.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but we did a little research here into
Yeah.
what we could find out is the recommended dose, and we found
Mhm.
it was all over the place. It was considerably all over the place. But what we came out to was they recommend in it not in one dose, but in a 24-hour period. It was I think it's 5 milligrams per kilogram. It worked out to about 80 milligrams a day for a
Mhm.
35 pound child, or about 110 milligrams for a 50-pound child. Now, but that's in a 24-hour period. Other things said they should only have it in uh, it should be in 3 separate uh, doses, but only 5 milligrams at a time with meals. So there's a lot of it's all over the charts. I mean, it really
Yeah, but what would be what are the conditions that would be treated with, say 20 to 30 milligrams per
oh,
dose?
that's well,
What
that was a severe epilepsy, a child with severe
Yeah.
epilepsy. We looked for
Oh,
worst
right,
case.
right.
I deliberately looked for the worst numbers possible. I mean, I wanted the high numbers so we could see
Yeah.
what's on the far end of the scale, and that was the number for a child with severe. It was 5 to 10 is actually what it was
Right.
per
Yeah.
per
So,
kilogram of body weight.
yeah. So, I don't know what the studies look like, and I could imagine for severe epilepsy that could be so, but then there's so many other medical conditions. Take for instance autism, right? That there's been a lot of success for parents providing cannabis in one form or another to autistic children. And I'm just guessing that the dosages for that will be lower. And, really, what's the minimum effective dose? The minimum effective dose for a THC naive adult is 2.5 milligrams. So at a roughly 2.5 milligrams, an adult will begin to experience the effects of THC if they're THC naive, right?
Right.
So right, and so in most states, they limit the per serving dosage to a maximum of 10 milligrams.
Okay. I'm looking at my notes here, which were looked up for
Yeah.
me, and the numbers I gave, my apologies, were actually on CBD.
Mhm.
So I looked at the wrong.
Okay, well
I
that's
looked at
that's
the
a
wrong.
huge
That's
huge
why the
difference
numbers
then,
are
right?
so high. Because I've got another
Yeah.
sheet here. I've got another sheet here that says 5 to 10 milligrams is the maximum dosage. So,
Yeah.
as I said, I've got numbers all over the place here.
Okay. Yeah, so I don't know the level of studies that have been done with regards to specific dosages. I've seen some studies with regards to pain and dosages, um, but pediatric dosages, I'm not aware of studies. And I had a conversation recently with a parent of an autistic child who was extremely frustrated by the situation right now because she has a medical card for her son, and she wanted to find some sort of edible option for her son. And basically, the market is such that there is nothing that looked viable to her. And what we hear constantly is that there's total inconsistency from one edible to the next, and also within pieces or within regions of an individual edible. You break an edible up into quarters or whatever. One quarter might be useless. Another quarter might have all the cannabinoids in it. And so the processes that are being used right now, I think, they're just not working.
Okay, so
And so
we're just talking
I,
about we've mostly been talking about gummies. Okay,
yeah,
let's go beyond gummies. What about brownies or cookies or some of the other stuff that might be out there?
right. So potentially those could be better media because you could then dissolve the cannabinoids into a butter, right? Or an oil, and then mix it in with chocolate to create a brownie and so
So,
forth. So, right,
so in butter or oil, you're saying that it's more likely that the cannabinoids will be evenly distributed throughout the mix versus something where you're adding a tincture.
yeah, it's
Especially
more,
especially when you're adding it to a gelatin which
yeah,
won't
right.
adhere to anyway.
So right, so it won't dissolve in a gelatin, but it can dissolve in oil, it can dissolve in butter. It dissolves very well into butter. All right.
So
So if you have an even distribution of the butter in a batter for a brownie, for instance, then you could have an even distribution of the cannabinoids across it. But one of the issues still is if you have a brownie that has 100 milligrams in it, and you only want to have 5 or 10 milligrams of a dose, you're breaking it up in ways that, unless you have some device perhaps to do it precisely, you're going to vary the amount of cannabinoids you get. And once again, if you're looking at pediatric dosing, right, starting at 2.5 milligrams of THC, that probably is not the better option as well.
so
So let me just give you one idea.
well, maybe as an option, if you're doing pediatrics, maybe a food scale, a gram food scale, so you can weigh your brownie beforehand. You know, if you have to count crumbles, you have to count crumbles. It's
Mhm.
safer than a gummy, I would think, where you're not sure. Am I right?
So let's say you had some kind of medium that was oil or butter based, right? It could be little chocolates or something like that, but something in which the cannabinoids can actually dissolve. One option is that instead of making a big brownie tray, right? What if you were to make tiny little bites, pre-make them in that form, right? What if you had basically something like a mold that's used for gummies, but you put your batter for your brownies into that? So what if you had something that really did have a solution of cannabinoids and you introduced it into molds that allowed you to get much more precise dosing? Similarly, even if somebody were to use gummies, even if somebody were to use gummies, you're much better off having to take 3 or 4 or 5 2 milligram gummies than taking a 40 milligram gummy and cutting it up.
So we should maybe try and avoid these large gummies. You might think if we're gonna if we need gummies, try and look for ones that are in small micro doses.
So somebody who's comfortable with 40 milligram doses, if that's what they need, that's what they need. But for most people, right, for most people, 5 milligrams will be a fine amount, 10 milligrams will be a fine amount. And so one thing I'm hoping to see in the industry, which you basically see in just about every other state, is basically using as a benchmark for dosing 10 milligrams. And there are a lot of products in other states that are as low as 2.5 milligrams. So my thought is rather than one big gummy, sell a bag of little gummies or whatever it is that you're going to be selling with 2, 3 milligram dosages in each. And then somebody who wants to eat more than 2 or 5 or whatever could do so. So a way to try to manage dosing.
Some positive news for you then. Last week, I think, or no, it was the week before last, I was in a facility that was making very small 2.5 and 5 milligram doses. And
Yeah,
they were going to put enough in the bag to make a
yep,
40 milligram bag.
yep. And actually, I saw another brand that they were making gummies that said 3 to 5 milligrams each. and the bag had something like 40 of them in it. So yeah, so we are migrating towards that. And when you look at the adverse effects of cannabis across the country, most of the people who end up going to an emergency room or phoning a poison control center, it's because of edibles, because of taking too large of a dose of edibles. And so if the market focuses upon very small units, 2 milligrams to 5 milligrams, so that individuals can basically take a few of those, as opposed to leaping into these big ones of 40 milligrams, or even cutting them up and not getting consistent amounts in each of the portions, you can have a lot fewer adverse events, right? So, similarly, you don't necessarily take an 800 milligram ibuprofen. You take a couple 200 milligrams. You get much better control of your dosing if your individual units are smaller doses.
Yeah, I think we all need to remember you can't uneat the brownie.
That's right.
Once you ate it, that's it. It's over.
Yeah.
You better get it right.
And let me offer another option, because I've been thinking about this for a while, and another option, something that I recommended to this parent of the autistic child, because she was so frustrated in not being able to find anything. What I suggested to her was that a lot of the dispensaries are selling cannabis oil, selling Rick Simpson oil, and so on, basically in these syringes. All right. So it might be 1 milliliter or 3 milliliter syringes, and with a certain number of THC milligrams per milliliter that's hopefully labeled, and with then a gel cap, like a pill capsule, if you can see them, right? Your typical pill capsules that, if you use herbs or whatever, you fill those capsules with. You can get what's called a micropipette. eBay, $25. I actually have one. I've used it for other things, for other medications that I've had. I had to buy one. And so these things are about $25 on eBay. And you can control here with a little dial the number of microliters that this will pick up at a time. And so basically you put it into a solution, you press the button down, you release the button, and it'll pull the exact number of microliters that's on this little screen. And then you put it into a little pill capsule. And so you have a tray, and you fill up, say, 20 or 40 pill capsules at a time. And you could dose it exactly, precisely. You find out what the number of milligrams per milliliter are, you do your math, rotate the dial to the number of microliters that you need. If you want to add coconut oil or whatever for a larger volume to make it easier, you could do that. And then you just dose the pills individually to that 1 milligram or to the 2 milligram or whatever you might need for a child or for somebody who's THC naive. And that way you get exactly consistent dosing every time.
I
do it at home.
I have to let you know, Lawrence, you're adding to the mad scientist thing when you pick that up and start waving it around, in the dark there. We're all getting that mad scientist vibe right now.
I'm going to emphasize it because I think especially for parents trying to figure this out for their children and really nervous about giving them too much and not knowing for sure what they're doing, so long as the tincture or the oil they're buying is properly labeled, then they could use one of these devices, a micropipette, that they could buy on eBay for $25. Get something that starts at around, say, 10 microliters to 100 microliters. Get that range. And they could precisely dose the exact amounts that they need for their child.
Is this something you've tried yet or are planning to try maybe down the road? Or I'm wondering if you put this to practice.
I have been experimenting with various nutritional supplements for years. And some of them I purchased in liquid form, and I purchased this for that reason. And I have a little wood tray here that I just used to drill holes in to hold my capsules. So it's not hard, I'm a cheapskate. I did this at home. You could buy the equivalent thing, for a couple bucks online, but it's pretty simple to do.
So
I might even make a video step by step for people.
there you go. So
Yeah.
the doses for the elderly that have never used this before, do you think it's in the same range as what we're talking about now? I know when I looked it up, first I'll say most of them they again recommend starting with CBD, but then gradually working into it. But have you found it to be roughly the same numbers?
So once again, I would say that for an adult, for a THC naive adult, a good starting point is 2.5 milligrams of THC. And so, right, to get that low, given the way our market is right now, this is the route to take. Colorado, for instance, they have a number of brands that do have 2.5 milligram edibles. We don't have, you mentioned that there's one company coming out with 2.5 milligrams.
Mhm.
So if they're consistent at 2.5 milligrams, that's fine. But bear in mind that those are such small quantities that if you accidentally, if the manufacturer, because of their process, ends up getting twice that amount in the edible, so it's 5 milligrams versus 2.5 milligrams, the experience could be completely different, right? So, I think that our market needs to mature, but for people who are really new to it, who are not, who really are, it really is best for them to start low, then 2.5 milligrams, for the teenager, for the adult, for the elderly, 2.5 milligrams for children, maybe even less. Just think about body weight.
So you're right. The industry needs to mature. Are you seeing any strides in that direction yet? I mean, is it better than it was a month ago? You think it'll be better next month? What are you seeing?
I am seeing some improvement. I think the very first edibles that I saw on the market were like 50 or 60 milligrams. They weren't scored or anything, so there was just no way to know how much some you were taking at a time. And they were these big chunky gummies that you've also seen the pictures of the ones that get mold on them, right? So a lot of the stuff was originally sold. They was not prepared in hygienic conditions and ended up having bacteria or mold or whatever growing over time. So hopefully those, the mere hygiene of manufacturing is improved. And there are really advanced um, media that have been developed. Self-emulsifying drug delivery systems, it's called, that a number of states have, that allow for absorption not through the liver, but rather absorption through the lymphatic system in a couple minutes. So there's a real long trajectory, right? There's a big gap between where we are and where the most advanced states are, but there is incremental improvement between, say, 2 months ago and now. There's not a lot. It's right on the cusp, at least, of getting into these lower doses. But I don't think that gummies are really optimal. Frankly, why doesn't an edible company simply just do this? You can get a multi-path pipette. You've probably seen them on videos or something where there's like 8 or 12 tubes, and you could basically have filling a whole series of capsules at once. What do you need to have it in a gummy for? What's the point of the gummy,
Yeah,
right?
I
You're going to eat a little candy. Just put it in a pill.
yeah.
Just put it in a pill.
I understand some people can't swallow pills though, and there is situations where that is tough. There is situations where gummy might be necessary. I just think
Yeah.
that that's about 1 or 2% of the people that are purchasing them,
Right.
and I think that I think we're spending too much effort into gummies. As you say, they're
Yeah.
they're they're slightly flawed anyway. We should maybe pay a little more attention on some of the other products as the gummies get better. So
Yeah.
they
You
will
know,
get better.
a
As
look.
I said, I've seen, and now that's two places now I've seen that are making very small ones.
Mm.
So they are going to
A
get better.
little bit of science goes a long way.
What's that?
A little bit of science goes a long way.
Yes, it does. We'll call you our
Yeah.
Bill Nye the Science Guy for tonight. You'll be Lawrence the Science Guy, the mad scientist guy.
Yeah.
Okay, Lawrence, what else would you like to talk about tonight? I know you got all kinds of stuff you want to talk about.
Let me speak to another issue that's somewhat related. It's not necessarily gummy connected, but certainly it deals with a medical issue, and certainly one of the issues that I've spoken to a lot, namely the wall that still exists between pain management patients and their doctors. That, we've gone on many times to talk about the Oklahoma Pain Society and my work with them, and they're coming to support the use of cannabis for pain management. So the society has a statement that's positive, but still, the majority of pain management doctors, I don't know what percentage, I'd still say 80% of the pain management doctors around the state will terminate patients who get a card who test positive for THC. And that's just irrational, right? That they don't know enough about cannabis to know that what they're doing is actually contrary to the interests of their patients. And just sort of one simple point, which is, why are there opioid deaths? They're opioid deaths because opioids are respiratory depressants. Cannabis is a respiratory stimulant. THC is a respiratory stimulant. It increases respiration rates, it increases respiratory volume. So the mechanism of cannabis, it doesn't cause depression in respiration. There are negligible CB1 receptors in the region of the brain that controls respiration. And it actually, it's a mild stimulant. Your heart rate goes up, your respiration goes up. And so it actually could save somebody's life. If you're taking an opioid and you use some cannabis with it and increases your respiration, it might prevent an opioid overdose. So doctors are actually doing something completely opposite to what's in their patients' interests when they're not letting patients integrate the two.
And while
Now,
and look, and while they're doing that, I've noticed they're running a commercial that tells everybody that has anybody in their family on opioids, they should keep an injection, one of those injections.
naloxone.
Yeah, to
Yeah,
if they were just if they
right,
were just using cannabis regular, maybe that wouldn't ever be a problem.
right. So the pharmaceutical company is responsible for the opioid crisis, gets all these people addicted and puts their lives in danger, and then markets a new product for them that's going to save their lives.
Yeah, but
It's
the federal government,
it's like
but the federal
it's like a
government,
Black Mirror episode. It's horror.
well, and the federal government gives us nothing but lip service as far as all these rumors that there's going to be a federal change real soon, or the president suddenly going to sign something and fix it. I think it's going to move through the system slowly, like it's been doing for a long time. Now we're almost to that point, but I do think we're still another election away, because only things only get done during elections that are needed
Well,
for votes.
here's a political point. I want to get back to the pain management issue in a moment, but here's a political point. Did Trump try to get the wall funded in the 2017 budget? No. Did Trump try to get the wall funded as the Republican House and Senate were putting together their budgets? While they were crafting the budgets, did he try to get it funded? No. Only after Congress voted on the budget did Trump make a stink about it. And here I think is the reason why. Because the Democrats are about to take the House. So by Trump making a stink about the wall and shutting down the government over the wall, he could have gotten his funding if his fellow Republicans supported it a couple months ago while they were still crafting the budget. But he didn't. Why did he wait? Because now we have this huge crisis and we have this huge hurdle that interferes with the legislative agenda of the Democrats about to take control of the House. So when we're hoping for any changes, when we're hoping for the Democrats to introduce the States Act in the House, when we're hoping for anything to come from the House, well, we're in this crisis now engineered by Trump that's going to just delay things.
Okay, back to the pain management part.
Okay, back to the pain management part. Patients are in a battle with their doctors. They're trying to get their doctors to see reason. They're trying to get their doctors to read. They're trying to get their doctors to be educated about cannabis. And a lot of patients aren't succeeding in that. So, I keep on thinking, what else could I do? What else could I do? What else could I do? And we've talked about all the many other things that I've done, and I just had another idea. And the other idea is a lot of doctors don't believe that cannabis helps with pain. I've heard patients say the doctor says, okay, you go ahead and use cannabis, and then when you realize it doesn't work, you'll come back to me, right? Have you heard that sort of thing?
Yes.
Okay. So, to the doctors that don't believe that cannabis helps with pain, the doctors still believe that cannabis will put you to sleep. Indicas and whatnot, they put you to sleep. Well, because of the black box warning from the CDC for integrating benzodiazepines and opioids, patients basically can't use the two of them together. And the result is a lot of patients' sleep has just become horrendous as a result. So maybe they're still on their opioids, but they can't sleep because they can't take their benzodiazepines. Well, here's a solution for you. For the doctors that don't believe that cannabis helps with pain, but do believe that cannabis can help with sleep, well, let their patients use the cannabis for sleep. It doesn't cause respiratory depression. It may save the patient's life because it's a mild respiratory stimulant. Just let them do it that way. Let them use cannabis not as a replacement for their opioids if you don't believe in that. Let them use cannabis as a replacement for the benzodiazepines, which you already had to take them off.
Well, there you go, Lawrence, making sense again. I don't know what you're thinking.
I live in this illusion that people around me are rational.
Oh, come on now. I'm around you. How could you think that? We spend too much time together.
And I'm around me. I have my moments where I'm not particularly rational either, but I still expect of myself and I expect of other people that we strive to be rational.
Yeah, well, we strive. Okay, well, Lawrence, we're going to wrap it up unless there's something else you want to add.
Those were the two things I wanted to talk about tonight.
Right. Well, look, I'd like you to come on every week if you don't mind. And as you can see here at my new super secret location here in Oklahoma City in Grumpy Corner, I get a good signal, so we don't have to worry about technical problems. So maybe I can get you to do this every week.
Yeah, I'd be happy to come on. We could maybe come up with a game called THC Roulette to talk more about the gummies.
Yes, we can go ahead and make your wheel. I've seen the wheel. Guys, I can tell you I've seen the wheel. We're going to have Lawrence make the wheel. We will have Lawrence on regularly to play games.
I also found some music. Can I put the music on for THC Roulette?
Yeah, you mean right now? No, I'll end up getting sued. No, I don't want to end up getting sued, man.
Fair use.
What's that?
Fair use. It's only a 20-second clip.
All right, do it. Do it.
All right.
Do it. On that note, thank you. Hey, folks! Now that Lawrence has us in a little trouble with a TV show, hopefully we will see Lawrence again. Folks, that's it. Little information about edibles in Oklahoma from the perspective of Lawrence. Hopefully that was some useful information for you guys. Make some comments, share this, tell us what you think. Let's all work together to make this the best medication program we can. Okay, folks, that's it for tonight. I've got a lot coming up this week. I'm going to be in town in Oklahoma City here most of the week. I've got a few important meetings. I've got a radio show I think we're going to make it to tomorrow if I can get up early enough. And then we've got a patient drive in everybody's been wanting us to come out to, what is it, Weatherford? So we're going to Weatherford on Saturday. I will post all the details about that. That's going to be a great time if you're out in the western part of the state. Hopefully you can make that. Okay, folks, that's it for tonight. Stay grumpy. I'll see you on the road.